I'm the Oppressed Patriot, and we're here in New Milford, Connecticut to look at this Stuart Tank.
The M3 Stuart was the standard light tank for America during World War II. It preceded the Sherman and was actually the first American crew tank of World War II. As a light tank, it had thinner armor and a smaller cannon than the heavier Sherman. The Stuart was a scout and infantry support vehicle, and at these tasks, it excelled.
The tank was controlled by a crew of 4, the commander and gunner, who worked together to sight targets, load and fire the cannon, the driver, who controlled where the tank went, and the assistant driver, also known as the bow gunner, who was specifically on the lookout for enemy infantry and took command of that bow machine gun. This is an M3 Stuart. The M5 Stuart that came later had a flat front glacis. This one you can see the indentation marking it as an earlier model. This is a light tank. It wasn't intended to combat other armored vehicles. It was intended to support the infantry, and at that it excelled. The main armament was this 37mm cannon. The vast majority of the ammo carried would be high explosive, used against infantry, but they also kept a little bit of armor piercing just in case they encountered enemy tanks. And early in World War II, like in the North Africa campaign, that armor-piercing ammunition was able to handle the threats that it faced, such as the Italian Fiats and the German Panzer IIs and IIIs. Now, as far as anti-infantry weapons go, right next to the main cannon, we have the coaxial machine gun. This would be a 1919 30-06 caliber machine gun. Another 1919 here in the front, operated by the bow gunner. And then on top of the turret, there would be yet another 1919 machine gun. Now, in an early video, I did the M4 Sherman, the Easy 8. It has a wide track. This track is very narrow in comparison, but this is a light tank. It only weighs around 15 tons. It doesn't need to distribute its weight as much, and it's still able to maintain that speed with the thinner tread. The suspension was the standard American suspension on early tanks in the war, the vertical volute spring suspension. It has 2 bogie assemblies, in contrast to the larger Shermans that had 3. This vehicle was noted for its reliability and speed. The drive sprocket was where the power of the treads comes from. This is the only part that actually gets power in the whole tread assembly. This pulls the tread around over the bogies, the return wheels, and puts the tank into motion. The Stuarts had an operational range of about 100 miles, a top speed of 36 miles an hour, carried 144 rounds for the cannon, mixed between mostly high explosive, some armor piercing, and canister, and 6,750 rounds of 30-06 ammunition for the machine guns. One thing you might notice about this Stuart is, as far as tanks go, it's pretty small. It was quite cramped inside. You got 4 guys in there controlling the thing while looking for the enemy all at the same time. It's amazing they had the effect they did, but the enemies learned to fear them in both Africa, the Pacific, and around the world after World War II, used by the Portuguese and the Indians and Indonesians. As a light tank, the Stuart was used for its speed, recon ability, and anti-infantry power. Being the first tank the Americans used in World War II in the North Africa campaign, and then later on in the Pacific, they found it was well suited to the jungles. It had a significant impact against our enemies, until its bigger brother, the M4 Sherman, came along, and then it continued to fight side by side for some time after. I'm the Oppressed Patriot, and thank you for watching.